She thought her inheritance had been stolen, vanished without a trace. Every clue pointed to a stranger, someone sneaky, opportunistic, ready to take what was rightfully hers. But the truth would hit her like a thunderclap. The person behind it wasn't a thief at all. It was her own daughter, and what she had done with it would change everything. Hello, my friends. I am Olivia, and this is Olivia's Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I remember the first morning after my mother's funeral as if it were etched into my bones. The house smelled of lavender and old wood, a perfume she had always loved. I ran my fingers along her writing desk, the surface polished but scarred with decades of pen scratches and coffee rings. My life, until that day, had been quiet, predictable even. I was a mother, a wife, a woman who measured success by small joys, the way my children laughed over breakfast, the scent of fresh linens in the dryer, the soft hum of life that kept me tethered to comfort. Yet something gnawed at me beneath the calm, a need I could never quite name. I wanted more than ordinary. I wanted proof that life held surprises, that justice existed for those who had always played fair. And when my mother's will arrived, that hope bloomed like spring after a long winter. The letter had been simple, crisp, typed neatly. I unfolded it with trembling hands. She had left me her inheritance, the sum of a lifetime's worth of savings, investments, and memories carefully catalogued. A life she had built piece by piece, leaving a legacy she trusted I would honor. But the inheritance never reached me, not entirely. Weeks passed, checks bounced, bank transfers failed, and what should have been mine seemed to vanish into thin air. Panic gnawed at my chest like a persistent mouse. I called banks, hired lawyers, and even traced every address my mother had ever known. Nothing. Nothing but shadows and silence. I began to suspect the worst. Maybe someone had stolen it, someone with a greed sharp enough to pierce even the strongest protections. I imagined a stranger, slick, calculated, cruel, grinning as they emptied my mother's life into a suitcase. I felt a cold rage stir inside me, a bitterness I hadn't known I could harbor. Then, one rainy afternoon, I returned home to find my daughter, Lily, sitting at the dining table, her small hands clutching an envelope that I instantly recognized. My heart froze. The logo of the bank glinted from the corner of the paper. Could it be? She looked up at me, her eyes wide, innocent, yet there was a spark there I hadn't seen before. "Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. I used it." My mind whirled. Used it? How? Why? The storm outside pounded against the windows, each drop a drumbeat of fear. I stepped closer, my pulse hammering in my ears, and as I reached for the envelope, she slowly opened it to reveal its contents. And that's when I realized the inheritance wasn't stolen. It had been transformed. I stared at her, my mind a whirlwind. The envelope in her hands seemed heavier than any weight I had ever carried. "Lily, what do you mean you used it?" My voice cracked, a mixture of fear, confusion, and disbelief. She swallowed hard and looked down at her lap. "I know it was supposed to be for you, Mom, but..." Her fingers trembled as she unfolded a folded stack of papers, revealing a small notebook filled with careful handwriting and numbers. I couldn't just wait. People at school, at the shelter, near the park, they needed it more than we did. I felt my knees weaken. "More than we did?" I whispered, my voice almost lost in the rain tapping against the windows. "Lily, this was my mother's inheritance. It was supposed to secure our future." Her small hands reached for mine. "I know, Mom. I just, I saw Mr. Jenkins crying because he couldn't pay for the heating in his apartment, and the kids at the shelter were shivering. I didn't think. I just. She trailed off, tears brimming, but her eyes held something I hadn't seen before, a courage, a selfless kind of bravery. For a moment, the room felt impossibly quiet. The storm outside seemed distant, almost reverent. I realized that all my worry about stolen money, about betrayal, had blinded me to what really mattered. My daughter, my child, had done something extraordinary, something noble. "Lily," I said, voice trembling. I pulled her close, holding her as the sobs I had been fighting broke free. You used it to help others?" She nodded, burying her face into my chest. "I wanted to make a difference, Mom. I wanted to honor Grandma's kindness, even if I didn't know how." I pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. "You've done more than honor her, Lily. You've made me see that the world isn't just about what we keep for ourselves. It's about what we give." My throat tightened, emotion choking me. "You've reminded me of something I forgot a long time ago." Tears streamed down both our faces as I realized the truth. The inheritance wasn't lost. It had grown, multiplied, in ways I couldn't have imagined. And in that moment, I understood that my daughter had given me a gift far greater than money. But just as I reached for her again, a sudden knock at the door made both of us freeze. My lawyer's name flashed in my mind. Or someone else? My pulse raced, my heart pounding against my ribs like a warning drum. "Who could it be now?" I whispered, glancing at the door. Lily's hand found mine again, her grip tight and grounding. "Mom, maybe it's about the rest of Grandma's estate," she said softly, a hint of fear in her voice. I swallowed hard and took a deep breath. Whatever awaited us on the other side of that door, I knew one thing. Our lives had already changed forever, and there was no going back to the ordinary existence we had known. I reached for the doorknob, my hand trembling. The sound of the storm outside seemed to fade, replaced by a deafening silence of anticipation. And when the door creaked open, I couldn't believe who was standing there. The moment the door swung open, my breath caught in my throat. Standing there wasn't my lawyer or some stranger with ill intentions, but a woman I hadn't seen in years. A woman with sharp eyes and a presence that made the air itself seem heavier. "Mrs. Harper," she said, her voice calm but edged with authority. "I'm from the foundation your mother contributed to, and we need to talk about your daughter." Lily stepped back slightly, hiding behind me, but I instinctively pulled her closer. What about her?" I asked, my voice trembling. The woman's gaze softened just a fraction. "She's done something remarkable. She took the inheritance intended for personal use and redirected it to help dozens of families in urgent need. Your daughter, she saved lives." A strange mix of pride and guilt collided inside me. Pride because my little girl had made a tangible difference in the world. Guilt because I had jumped to conclusions, imagining betrayal when all along she had acted from the purest of hearts. "But there's more," the woman continued, holding up a folder. "The total value of what she's distributed is considerable. We need to ensure everything was properly accounted for. It's complicated." I swallowed hard, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. Lily had risked so much. My mind raced. Had she broken the law? Would she be in trouble? And yet, at the same time, I felt a swelling of admiration and love that I had never fully allowed myself to experience. Lily, sensing my fear, stepped forward and spoke. "Mom, I didn't want to disappoint you. I couldn't watch people suffer when I had the means to help. Her voice wavered, but the honesty in it shone brighter than any jewel or inheritance. I pulled her into my arms again, holding her tight. You've made me see the world differently, Lily. You've shown me what really matters. My voice broke with emotion. Not money, not possessions, but the courage to act when it matters most. The woman from the foundation nodded, impressed. Your mother would be proud. And you, both of you, have reminded us why her legacy matters. This is exactly how it was meant to be honored. Even as relief washed over me, there was an undeniable tension in the room. The inheritance had been dispersed, lives had been touched, but the practicalities still loomed. Legal forms, financial repercussions, and perhaps judgment from people who didn't understand Lily's intentions. I looked at her, my daughter, and realized she had grown up in a single, defining act. The girl who once clutched my hand nervously at the first day of school had become a force of compassion, fearless in ways I had only dreamed of. But just as I was about to speak, the woman placed a gentle hand on my shoulder and said, "There's someone else you need to meet. He played a part in this too, though you might not expect it." My stomach dropped. Someone else? My heart pounded against my chest like a drum in a storm. I glanced at Lily, whose wide eyes mirrored my own shock and curiosity. Who, who is it? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The woman smiled faintly, almost knowingly. You'll see, soon enough. As she stepped aside, a figure appeared in the hallway, a man whose presence made the room feel impossibly small, and whose eyes met mine with an intensity I hadn't anticipated. My pulse raced. Recognition, disbelief, and an unexpected sense of destiny collided all at once. And in that heartbeat, I realized nothing about this inheritance, this storm, or my daughter's bold actions would ever leave us ordinary again. The man stepped fully into the room, and my breath caught. My heart pounded in a mix of shock and recognition. It was Daniel, the man I had known years ago, my mother's old family lawyer who had helped her manage her estate. But he wasn't just a lawyer anymore. There was a gentleness in his eyes, a quiet pride, and something else, an almost unspoken connection, as if fate had drawn him back into our lives at this exact moment. "Mrs. Harper," he began, his voice steady but warm. "I wasn't supposed to interfere, but when I learned what your daughter had done, I couldn't stay away. She's remarkable. She took your mother's legacy and turned it into hope for others, and I wanted to see it for myself." I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "Daniel, Words failed me. So much had happened, and yet somehow it all fit together in this improbable, beautiful way." Lily stepped forward, her small hand gripping mine. "Mom, he helped me," she whispered, shy but proud. "He showed me how to make sure the money reached the right families safely. He trusted me, even when it was risky." I looked at my daughter, my brave, selfless girl, and felt a surge of overwhelming love. "You did all of this? On your own?" I asked, awe breaking through my disbelief. She nodded, her cheeks flushed with a mix of fear and pride. "I just wanted to help. That's all I ever wanted." Daniel smiled, a quiet, approving smile. "She did more than help. She honored your mother's memory in ways none of us could have predicted. And Mrs. Harper, she reminded me why I do what I do. People like your daughter, people like you, give purpose to all of this." The room felt impossibly full, yet intimate, full of rain-soaked sunlight streaming through the windows, The faint scent of lavender still lingering, the unspoken bond between mother, daughter, and the man who had returned at exactly the right moment. I pulled Lily into a hug again, holding her tight as if I could physically absorb all the courage, kindness, and selflessness she had shown. "You've made me proud in ways I never imagined," I whispered. "Not because of money or inheritance, but because of your heart. You've changed lives, Lily, and you've changed mine." Daniel stepped closer, extending his hand to me, not formally, but with a warmth that bridged the gap between old acquaintance and newfound friendship. "And Mrs. Harper, I hope you realize your family's legacy isn't just about wealth. It's about compassion, courage, and love. And your daughter has reminded us all of that." I nodded, tears spilling freely now. The storm outside had passed, leaving the world washed clean, fresh and radiant. In that moment, I understood that my daughter had done something far greater than I had ever imagined. She had not stolen, she had given. And in giving, she had uncovered the true inheritance: hope, courage, and an unwavering sense of purpose. As we stood together, rain dripping from the eaves onto the garden path, I knew life had shifted forever. My ordinary days, my predictable routines, they had been transformed by the extraordinary act of a little girl who dared to follow her heart. And in that quiet, radiant moment, I finally whispered aloud, to no one but the three of us, "Thank you for reminding me what really matters." Lily smiled, Daniel nodded, and the world finally felt right.